Let's go. Okay. BOMAC talk. It's Friday. It's Friday. I hope you had a great week and you are ready to BOMAC talk it out. BOMAC talk is a BOMAC multimedia discussion hosted by Urbanetectonics LLC. These discussions align with Urbanetectonics LLC vision, our vision, and our mission. Um, our vision is the firm's vision or plans long term are to build the best frameworks, centralized constructs that enhance economic hubs and support business ecosystems. Our mission, or the firm's mission, or our calling, is to conserve business constructs and preserve business owners, managers, and administrators through the implementation of quality management solutions, right? So, what is BOMAC Talk? BOMAC Talk is a dynamic platform for professionals, innovators, and thought leaders to explore the intersection of technology and business operations. We focus on helping organizations navigate digital transformation and master project management to achieve long-term sustainability, right? Engineered for longevity. The core pillars of discussion, um, or usually the core pillars of our discussion is the um, subject matter that we cover. We deep dive into system integration, business automation, and future tech trends. Our major focus is our 10 core assessments, which we encourage businesses to take annually or quarterly to audit their health and, and delegate effectively. We take it, we encourage you to take it. We take our assessments and then we provide our own service in-house. And as I indicated in past sessions, this year we are working on core 9 and 8, technology and assets management, which is the financial portions. We're working on 5 and 6, which is marketing as well as sales, a sales activity. So you've seen that. You can see that kind of how we're working that through, and how we're reworking, working and reworking those areas, um, and the same process that we're taking our own company through assessments and service. We use our own product, we use our own service. So we'll be talking about how that's evolving, what that is, if you're not familiar with the assessment and service, what those different areas are, and how it's evolving as technology um, is disrupting each industry. So that's the subject matter. Our format and philosophy, we host this informal, casual discussion to share raw insights and lessons learned in the trenches. However, we don't rely on gut feel alone, right? We use some AI systems and systematic empirical data to stress test these personal experiences, to see what the industry, how they line up with industry trends, right? And so those allows us to move past those anecdotal biases and provides you with high integrity data-backed solutions, right? Which you'll see us utilizing within the 10 core assessment and the 10 core solutions or service. The data shift. So we believe AI is revolutionizing knowledge management, right? And as such, our goal is to help you to bridge the gap between human intuition and objective replicable measurement, ensuring your business transformation is built on a foundation of facts and not just stories, right? And so we have always actually, this discussion has always been foundationally um, insights and lessons learned. Our books are insights and lessons learned, and how that lines up with industry standards. And sometimes the line that we take will be proprietarily different than industry standards because of our experience and some of the things that we have learned. And so we share those, share some of those, and you're able to partake in some of those as you interact with us, either as a partner, sub-consultant, or a client. So who should join? Our content is tailored to business owners, managers, and administrators. Those are our that's our target market. And uh, independent consultants and consultants of all type will also gain some benefit from our discussions. Those individuals, decision makers looking to simplify organizational complexity and optimize their workflows, right? So, how do you connect? If you're listening to me, you figured it out, but to share it with others, how to connect and participate, we utilize multitasking platforms to create content while actively serving our market, right? So, where to watch, we are currently restreaming to YouTube, and through our partnership uh, with our developing partnership with Atomic Agency, we're expanding that to TikTok as as well. That will be kind of coming soon. But in any case, today we are pre-recording our session on today. So you will find that on Friday, woo, Friday, March 13th session 2026. This session is being pre-recorded. So we are what they call booked and busy and looking for those billables. So because of that, we are pre-recording today's session. And so usually, or in the usual setup within Restream, we can do private question and answers. I can bring in guests there privately if you have a question, but prefer to stay out of the public feed, which a lot of our owners and managers, administrators do. They don't particularly want to voice all of their business situations in a public feed, right? So that's commonplace, that um, privacy element. So we are active member of over a dozen entrepreneurial groups. Some of them are faith-based, and so we bring those collective insights kind of back to you in terms of whatever their questions are or whatever's going on in the mainstream of small business chatter, right? So we have advertised these open hours from 3 to 5. And if you can't, and if you're not able to connect with me doing that live stream within those collective groups, there's a way to get in contact. You could send a direct message, you could send an email. When all else fails, Urbanetectonics LC is the hub for all things Urbanetectonics LLC. So where everything else fails, you can start there. We have the AI chat. We have the regular chat, which will prompt you to input your email, phone number, so we can get in contact with you and answer any of the questions that you may have. Questions and comments, feedback, all are welcome. All right. So, as generational succession plans are being put in place, we'll pick up new followers. We're picking up new followers, and uh, whose needs may be different than the previous owners, managers, administrators, right? And so even in some of the contracts that we have, there's people that's phasing in and phasing out. We are also finding that some of the owner managers, administrators that we used to pitch to, they have changed hands, right? And there are new um, owners, managers, administrators in place, and their needs may be different. So they may not know me. So I'm reintroduced. I said, let me introduce myself, and in some places, reintroduce myself. You can call me Tammy. I'm managing member at Urbanetectonics LLC with over 3 decades leading in high pressure, male dominated arenas from architecture, engineering, construction, facilities, education, technology to ministry. I've built a reputation for being rough around the edges, but fiercely effective. I'm an anti-debt, fully bootstrap operator who lives by one mantra: every project must pay for itself. And as a seasoned project manager of different types of work and project teams, I know what it takes to build valuable IP, invest in others, and dominate fast-paced industries while often being the only female and only woman of color in the room. I don't just speak with confidence, I lead with it, and all that is built on deep roots, and intentional work towards wellness, staying in community, and building my faith. So that's just a summary snapshot in a case. But if you um, uh, have known me in different arenas and different entrepreneurial groups, you may not have gotten my whole profile, or you may not know different aspects of me. And it's so funny because I just was talking to a family member the other day, and they're like, I didn't know that. I heard that and I didn't even know that. I was like, you didn't know that? So even if you think you know me, you may not know everything about me. And it's surprising to say, oh, you didn't know that. They were like, no, I didn't know that about you. And so it's kind of funny. So it's great that we're able to kind of talk these things out and get it all mashed out, right? So uh the today's we are shifting subject matter, and so we are talking about um on today, or it's titled Give to Gain: The New Currency of Creative Leadership. And that title has gotten folks all excited. I've gotten a lot of feedback on that. I'm glad you're talking about this. I'm glad you're talking about this. And so uh I like to just um start with um, a article. Yeah, let me see if I can pull that up. There's an article that I wanted to share. Let me make sure I got it. Yeah, yeah. This is an article um, that was published on the 9th of March this month, and out in entrepreneurmagazine.com. Um, and it's called, the title is A Silver Tsunami is Coming for Small Businesses and Millions of Jobs, says experts, right? And so it's saying over 2 million small businesses nationwide have owners nearing retirement age. The key takeaways for this article is nearly half of U.S. small businesses nearly half of U.S. small business owners are 55 years and older, and only about half of them have a succession plan. Small businesses employ more than 62 million Americans and generate roughly 43% of U.S. GDP. So widespread closures would hit jobs and local economies hard. Then the third key takeaway that it has is that decisions about selling or stepping away are often deeply personal. And so it says the US is on the brink of a silver tsunami as baby boomers, small business owners retire, right? And so the silver tsunami refers to this huge cohort of baby boomers who own companies, right? They're business owners and are nearing retirement, many without clear succession plans. They don't have any, they hired folks, and even though they have folks maybe under their realm, they don't see anyone stepping up into a leadership position to be able to run the small business, so they can step away from operations and retire and just maybe be a silent partner. And according to a 2025 U.S. Bank report, nearly half of U.S. small businesses owners are 55 years older, yet only about 54% have any kind of succession plan in place. The U.S. Small Business Administration notes that small businesses employ 62 million. So that's where that fact came from. And so the ripple effect into the communities um, is um, that these small businesses, it goes on to say that these small businesses are huge creators of wealth, and they're the most pure vision of the American dream. And even if a modest share of boomer-owned firms close instead of changing hands, the impact could run into the tens of millions of jobs and hundreds of billions in lost local spending and tax revenue over the coming decade, right? And so experts estimate that um, there are regularly 10 million to 11 million small businesses for sale in any 3-year span, right? And so um, uh, on the business broker end, I can concur. I can concur with some of these findings, being that our industry span from startup all the way to exit. Um, our business footprint spans, every phase of the business life cycle. And so on the business broker side, there are lots of mergers and acquisitions. There are lots of um, baby boomers actually retiring earlier than Generation X retiring earlier than they usually do, and even some baby boomers starting to retire already. And so this activity, they're calling it the silver tsunami. But the term that is even more popular than that is called the Great Wealth Transfer, right? So this idea of this great wealth transfer happening in this next decade, this next 2 decades, is imperative to economic development within our cities, within our states, um, and within the and amongst our target market, the owners, managers, administrators in which we represent, right? And so this insight in so many accounts is an accurate and timely insight. The great wealth transfer is this historic shift that directly creates a need for management infrastructure and organizational systems that Urbanetectonics LLC provides, right? And so it's very appropriate for us to be kind of talking about this and talking about this right now, because of the disruption. And within the midst of the disruption, there is other, we talked, we uh, talked about this in the last topic, where everything is changing and colliding. There are lots of tectonic um, uh, aspects that are colliding at the same time, and this is one of them. Is that great wealth transfer is happening at the same time that every industry is being disrupted. So even when a traditional company may be changing hands, now you have to think about, how they made money in the last 10 years may not be profitable going forward in the next 10 years because of all of the disruption, because of all of the industry disruption with technology. So that adds a little bit layer of complexity because now a new owner just can't take revenue at face value or even management infrastructure and organizational systems at face value. Um, that's if they are uh, tangibly recorded, and that's some aspect that we speak to a lot too as well, is that owners need to be able to document their systems. They need to have, to pass over something tangible to new owners, managers, administrators, so they can actually see how in written format how a particular organization is is being ran, right? So that need for management infrastructure and organizational systems is imperative to good, great wealth transfer. Um, the core accuracy, of this insight that we're looking at in entrepreneur.com is that the scale of the shift, right? The estimated 84 trillion with a T to 124 trillion is projected to transfer from baby boomers to younger generations. That's Generation X, millennials, and Generation Z by 2045 to 2048 is the cap. But really in the next, excuse me, in the next 10 years, 2035 is where you really see the impact of it already happening now, right? And so before we get all excited about the trillion and the 84 trillion, we had to know where it is, what industries they are in, and like I indicated, what business types, business types, which regions, and those types of things of it, doing more market research, industry research, market research on that to capture that. Because even if those businesses go out of business, but new owners come up in those industries, they may not be successors, official successors of that business per se. But if they move into those regions, new businesses with, within that industry, at least that revenue or that need will be captured, right? And so cultivating new businesses to replace businesses that may close and not have a succession plan, or not, they may just decide we're just closing. We're not going to try to sell, we're not trying to bring someone up to lead it, where we can step away from it. We're just going to close, and in those cases and everything, you need businesses to take the place of those decisions. And so and then there's the scale of the shift is accurate. You can kind of bank on that. I was like, wow, it is huge. This is something that we need to take note of. Then the management gap, the extent of the management gap. A significant portion of this wealth is tied to family-owned businesses. However, about 34%, I'll get it there, I'll get there. I'm just so excited. I got so much to say. Okay, so however, only about 34% of family businesses have a formal succession strategy, and 69% of business owners admit they are not confident about handling an inheritance. And this is just being honest to say, okay, even if you did give me the business, I don't know how to run it. I don't know how to run it. I don't know how to handle it. I don't know anything about finances. I don't know about money. I don't know about business. I don't know how to deal with clients. I don't know how to deliver service. This is just being real, being real. They may have not come up in a and for first time business owners, this first generation business owners, being able to train those coming up in the business acumen so that they are poised to be able to step into place to handle a business. That's a real thing. As a first generation business owner, um, uh, navigating the business market and how to operate, manage, and sustain a business. This is why I wrote some of these books and those types of things, because I know as a first generation business owner, or just being, the eldest of nine, that you have to pass that information on. You can't just make the assumption that, oh, they're figured out, or they know this, or they don't know that. Just as I talk, like I said, they're like, I didn't know that, I didn't know this, and you just think that unless you teach it, and it's received, and you can see it in demonstration where they're actually carrying out those activities, you can't make that assumption that they're gonna know. So you have to leave some instruction, leave some written instruction as to how to do X, Y, and Z, how to do X, Y, and Z, right? So this is just huge for us. We're like, this management gap is where we shine. We can help. We can assist. We can help with this. And so we're excited about the support we can provide families going through this wealth transfer, right? And so um, then there's the strategic need that this great wealth transfer creates a critical demand for leaders who focus on operational continuity, bridging the gap where when heirs are unprepared for the massive responsibility of managing newly acquired assets or enterprises, right? And so when we talk about operational continuity, it's the same thing as business continuity. When there's a great weather event, and there's damage to a commercial building, or there's um, uh, power shut down, if you're doing things virtually or online, websites shut down, those types of things, there has to be a way to continue business. And same when a business is passed on to another, there has to be these um, uh, transitions and operations for business to continue, And so there's always going to be a gap there, and that gap needs to be expected and planned for, so that there's um, a bridge over that transition, and the massive responsibility doesn't feel so massive, because it's been carefully prepared, right? And all preparations, there's always those loopholes and things that you have to work out, but at least there's uh, somewhat an attempt to kind of bridge the gap. And then governance renewal, turning a potentially destabilizing transition into a catalyst for professional management and growth. Similar to um, I would put the technology disruption in this category, because the transition um, in this particular time can be destabilizing, because you're shifting something old into a market that is transforming into something new. What that market's going to be, we still don't know yet. We're all going through it, trying to figure it out. And so it's a little bit destabilizing. And so regaining governance over an existing infrastructure, there's always challenges there. But utilizing that, and then we using change management for humans and project management for the technology. You can use that uncertainty, transform it into professional management and growth, professional growth, a catalyst for professional management and growth. Yes. So, and then thirdly, so the strategic needs are operational continuity, governance renewal, and then the third is legacy preservation, moving beyond simple asset um, legacy preservation. There's that preservation. There's our word from our mission. Legacy preservation, moving beyond simple asset transfer to the transfer of values, knowledge, and responsibility. Values, knowledge, and responsibility. And see, those items would be packaged in those written instructions, those written documents like vision, mission, you know, how a service is carried out, you know, how the business operates, those types of things. What our key or core values are, um, and who does what, role definitions, role responsibilities, right? And so we're establishing um, that this great wealth transfer is not a trend, you know, it's a reality. We kind of talked about it. We are seeing more like seniors centers and senior housing and things going up, booming in that area. And so this is no longer a anticipated future trend. This is actually happening right now, right? We are in it. So, and as such, we should be preparing for that strategy gap, where that confidence gap, those responsibility gaps, and focusing on the operational continuity, governance renewal, and legacy preservation, right? And so, how does this apply? And we've kind of just talked about how this applies to Urbanetectonics and the regions we serve, right? And so, um, we've always said the power of next, and now we're saying engineered for longevity. Um, we um, which is a nod towards a transition, right? We a transition to the next generation, right? So next gen preparedness, experts emphasize that heirs should educate themselves on financial management, right? Financial management should be front of mind. And our shift or this year in terms of our 10 core, one of the front and center is core 9, core 8 technology and assets, which is financial management. Um, uh, we're uh, bringing that emphasis in-house as well. And so work with trusted advisors to build a roadmap, right? Next gen preparedness, financial management, trusted advisors to build a roadmap. Then the second uh, item that was highly recommended is a systemic infrastructure. Modern wealth management for the next generation is shifting from performance-centric to purpose-driven models that require the defined systems and process that requires defined systems and process mapping. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna say. Okay, so yeah, modern wealth management for the next generation is shifting from performance-centric to purpose-driven models that require the defined systems and process mapping that Cube Engineered Solutions provides, right? And so we have the 10 core system in the first aspect. And the second aspect, we have Cube Engineered Solutions to cover those. And then inclusion opportunity. The transfer represents a 3 trillion opportunity for Black business owners, people of color, as a leader in this space. Um, Urbanetectonics reintroduction positions them as a key builder for those looking to narrow wealth gaps through ownership and strategy, right? So ownership and strategy are going to be key in this wealth transfer, even going forward, even if you're merging, especially if you're merging, acquisition, in the disruption of technology, and then as this great ownership transfer happens, strategy, um, uh, which the underlining aspect of it is analysis, analysis, market research, industry research, making sure you do some business analysis. Nationally, um, I think we kind of indicated, uh, but let's restate it a little bit as we kind of pan down, just how big this is and where these concentrations are, right? So nationally, this trend is part of a larger great ownership transfer where an estimate of 6 million, and I think we may have said that previously, the ranges, small business, mid-sized business are expected to change hands or close by 2035. In the previous, we were talking about even 10 to 20 years, even into 2045. Um, so, and then likely sales versus closures. Nationally, only about 1 million of these 6 million businesses are considered viable candidates for a formal sale. That's 1/6. That's not even half. The remaining firms often face closure rather than transfer due to a lack of formal succession planning. So, but even the 1 million, to have 1 million businesses, 1 million of 6 million being for sale and changing owners, and then another 5 million having to replace that economic impact. Both of those transitions, but with new businesses or new business owners, both of those transitions are uh, in, in, impactful in different ways and something to look at. Um, so we serve in Texas and we serve in Ohio currently. So these are some of the stats within those states. In Texas, approximately 208, let's call it 209,000 small businesses in Texas are currently entering the wealth transfer era, or the silver tsunami, characterized by owners nearly nearing characterized by owners nearing retirement age, right? And so these businesses represent a critical segment of the state's economy. If these numbers are right, and you can always fact check those because it's empirical data. Empirical data. So the ownership demographics, half of all Texas businesses with employees have owners over the age of 55. The economic impact, these firms employ roughly 3 million workers and generate approximately 536 billion in annual revenue. Succession readiness. Despite the approaching transition, the vast majority of these owners, as many as 60 to 70%, lack a documented and communicated, has to be documented, has to be written, documented, standard operating procedures, lack a documented and communicated succession plan. So in Texas, which is home to over 3.5 million small businesses in total, this transition is increasingly seen as a closure crisis if viable firms fail to find buyers or successors. Okay. So that's approximately approximately 200,000 businesses in Texas. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of work. We're gonna be looking for you. We're gonna be looking for you to help you out. Okay, and so then in Ohio, the number of businesses expected, we don't have a flat number here, I don't think. Oh yeah. Um, no, I don't think we have a flat number on the number of businesses. Um, okay, let's walk this through. So the number of businesses expected to transition as part of the Great Wealth Transfer is primarily driven by 56% of businesses owned by residents age 55 or older. This is in Ohio. Um, the volume of transitions, Ohio's concentration, um, it says that the state has one of the highest concentrations of boomer-owned firms in the US, and that's quite a statement. But it doesn't have, I don't see any numbers on that. So state level statistics and challenges, employment impact, 2.1 million workers, representing 43% of the state's total employment. The planning, 60% of Ohio business owners have no formal exit or succession plan in place. The success rate, historically, only about 20 to 30% of small businesses listed for sale successfully find a buyer. And that's also, yeah, that's a real thing to watch as well. That's a real stat. Yeah, because even though, yeah, because even if you have a business for sale, as indicated, it depends on how you package it. It's also how you have ran the business up to that point, and how you're written. You got your standard operating procedures, your employee lineup, your clients, and your revenue, um, and how that would chart into the next decade, uh, which has so much disruption right now in every industry. And so that success rate becomes even more important, um, uh, in finding a successful um, sale. So Ohio business transitions, the portion of Ohio's wealth is tied to privately held businesses owned by baby boomers, which are expected to transition to new ownership or be monetized by 2035, right? And so mergers and activity, M&A activity as owners look to retire and transfer assets, are already driving high levels, this in Northeast Ohio, um, according to this report, right? And so um, Ohio's business survival rates are higher than the national average, with 55% of businesses surviving their first 5 years, which may improve the pool of sale-ready firms compared to other states. Now, sale-ready and businesses surviving their first 5 years is for me, two ends of the spectrum, right? And so, um, we know from small business, or we've talked before about small businesses, the SBA stats indicating fifth, 8 year is the most challenging for new businesses. And that applies for businesses that have just changed owners, because literally it's not exactly like starting up from scratch. But you still have that trial period where the that transition, that owner has to kind of make sure, um, that first 3 to 5 years is most pertinent for the new business owner as they take realms, or even in a um, merger situation, where you kind of pan out uh, all the problems that may come to the surface in a particular um, transition, right? Those change management activities, see how they're charting, where you're having success and where you're having challenges. So this reintroduction is just so appropriate and timely. Um, and we're glad that everything we do, that it is, that it's relevant and it's pertinent to the conversation that we're talking about, we can contribute, right? And so uh as we kind of chart forward in this part of the discussion, in this first hour, really honing in on this great wealth transfer. We just want to note that uh, as as the author of the Universal Language of Management series, um, and your partner in building the infrastructure for lasting legacy. Our expertise lies in mapping processes to turn vision into actionable results, building teams that bridge the gap between tradition and innovation, and defining systems that ensure your new era of ownership is sustainable and scalable, right? So mapping processes, building teams, and defining systems. The transfer of wealth is more than a shift in accounts, it's an opportunity to advance into these new technologies with operational excellence, right? And so our professional focus as multi-industry professionals, multidisciplined leaders, is to serve owners, managers, and administrators. And our core expertise is in those mapping, mapping processes, building teams, and defining systems, right? And so, um, the Universal Language of Management series is one of those foundational elements in that professional brand, and the contextual relevance to the great wealth transfer is that um, as these trillions in assets shift to new generations, there's going to be this increasing need for management infrastructure and governance, right? Just similar to when you first start up, or startup boot camp, and a virtual manager, and then eventually you get to the 10 core, is all about composing that infrastructure so that you can stabilize as an established business, and then exit with clear documentation and standard operating procedures, passing that on, right? And so this is the chart of um, a progressive leader, mindful manager, right? As you chart through some of these change management activities and manage some of these projects, right? So that is uh, really our um, that's our first hour. We're going to take a break. We're going to take like a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back and we will shift topic a little bit. We're talking about give to gain, the new currency of creative leadership, and we just kind of um, scratch the surface on the great wealth transfer, just to describe what it is, how big it is, who it impacts, and what those insights are, so that we can examine that. But we're going to shift a little bit, same topic, um, same overall reaching topic, but a different segment focus in the next hour. So We'll take a 10-minute break, stop here, and then we'll come back then. This is BOMAQ Talk. We're pre-recording today. We're talking Give to Gain, the new currency of creative leadership. We'll, we'll see you in the next hour.